the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. And life sucks all of the time, stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everybody. My name is Jen. I am your hostess, as I have been and will be going forward into the abyss of the future. So that being said, of course, as always, I have Henno and Bryan with me. Hi, guys.
Howdy.
Yo.
Yo, what's up?
Yo, chickadee, check yourself.
Hey.
So, with all of the randomness and fun, how has your guys' week been? Whoever wants to go first.
Go ahead, Hannah.
Go ahead. Actually, yeah, because remember last week I could barely stay awake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a check-in on that. Yeah, so on Thursday I get through work and I just, at the end of the day, I'm just telling my coworkers, I'm like, man, I've just been tired today, you know, and I had to take Jax to the vet on Friday morning. So I had to get up at 7. I get him to the vet, find out he's gained like 2 more pounds. I'm like, okay, now I got to take you for a walk. And not like I'm super tired or anything, but I'm just kind of dragging. So I take the dogs for a long walk, and I already had a cup of coffee. I go to my favorite little breakfast diner place. I go on Fridays. I had like, I don't know, maybe 3 more cups of coffee, went home. I was asleep on the couch at 11, slept till like 1. Like, and I just don't sleep in the middle of the day, you know, unless, you know, unless something's going on. So I barely get up. And at that point, I'm finally like, you know, this is also kind of like my victory for the week was like, yeah, listen to your body. You know, it's like, it's telling you something. So like that, then I worked on some of my taxes, you know, it's like had a movie on and was just doing filing and stuff. And then like literally fell asleep again at like 4, slept till like 6:30, you know, on the couch again, you know, and then once again from like 7 or, you know, did something from 7 till 9. And then from like 9, I fell asleep again on the couch at like 9, woke up at 11. Finally I was like, man, I should just get my clothes off and go to bed. You know? But it really was, it was like, I just was tired and didn't feel well, you know, and it'd been building up all week. And rather than fight it or, you know, I got to do my day or whatever it was like, no, you gotta listen to where you're at, you know, and sure enough, Saturday, woke up, felt good, you know, did what I needed to do. And, you know, the rest of the week's been the rest of the week, you know, and that kind of stuff. But
mental health days. You needed a mental health day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always had those, you know, I've always had those in my life where it was just like, you know, I would sleep. I've had days where I literally just, you know, slept all day. Every time I like get up a little bit, I'd be like, you know, and this is where I can relate to the depression thing is where, you know, I lift my head up and it literally feels like there's so much weight on top of me. And I look down and it's like, no, you know, and boom, back down again. And it would happen. Sometimes it would happen for 2 days. And I wasn't sick. I didn't have cold symptoms. I didn't have flu symptoms or anything like that. There was nothing wrong with me except for the fact that I just wanted to be in a dark room and not do anything.
Yeah.
And I would just sleep. Like I would barely even get up to go pee or something like that.
Yeah.
And now I'm not so much. It's, to me that was one of those days, but things have changed in my life. I've gotten to the point where I don't crash and burn like that anymore.
Yeah.
And all I can attribute it to is getting sober. I mean, that's it. I must have just taxed myself emotionally and physically for periods of time, and then my body just said, "Nope, that's it. You're done."
Yeah.
And
so that's
nice
probably what
it
was. Yeah, because when I was in school full time and working about 40-ish hours or so, when I finally would get a day off, which was rare that I'd get a full day off from one or from both. I was usually like that. Like I would just be like, I'm done, and I would pretty much just crash the whole day because I was, like you said, I had crashed and burned from I had pushed myself to the brink and not listened to, hey, maybe you should not take this many classes this semester, or maybe you should cut back on your hours or something like that, and just, I'm young, I can deal with this, and go. And, so plus,
it's a crazy feeling.
Yeah.
Like, when I remember it distinctly. I mean, I can literally bring up how it feels and how everything it is. And that's why when you share about it, Bryan, I'm just like, oh yeah, I get it.
Mm.
There was nothing's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing, and it's not even a thought process.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people try to like ridicule it and say, oh, you're just lazy or whatever. It's like, no, there's no choice in this.
Yeah. It's like trying to start a car. You go to start the car and it just won't start. You're just like, nope, I guess I'm not starting the car. Like there's no anything else to it. That's really what it comes down to. Like you said, there's no thought process most of the time. I mean, there are some days, like for me, to where I'll be like, hey, you really should get up. You got this, sometimes. But a lot of those days, it is seriously like you said. It's like you go to get up. Like I'll roll over. I'll look at my phone. I'll look at the time or something, and I'll just be like, no.
Yeah. Because you sit there and you say, all right, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
That's how I would have that conversation with myself. It's like, there's nothing wrong with me other than the fact that I just don't feel like existing right now.
Yeah.
Where it's like I'd sit there and I would beat myself up a little bit and go, just there's nothing wrong with you. You're not sick. You're not this and that. And it's like, no. Like it's so overwhelming. There's nothing I can do about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just call in sick and say, that's the next day. Sorry, I can't get up. Sometimes it'd be two days, sometimes 3 days. I never knew.
Yeah.
But it's I get it, and that's why I have so much. I'm just like, oh man, to have that as a daily part of your life.
Yeah.
Oof.
And I've had those myself, and the big thing with me is it has gotten better over the years, and I think for me it's because I don't push myself as hard. It's like I recognize when I'm in need of having a day like that, and I take it sooner than later. In the past, I think I just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And I pushed myself to such an extent that I'm just like out for the count, And now I just, instead of waiting till I'm at that very depleted state, I stop myself earlier and I take that time out and get myself replenished and back in action, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a great win, like you were mentioning, that's your win for the week.
Yeah, that was my Friday, was to say, just like what you just described. Like, okay, hey, let's pay attention. We don't need to have this turn into a full crash and burn.
Yeah.
Let's have just a partial today.
Yeah.
And I can still do things, and I can just say, okay, if you feel like falling asleep on the couch, fall asleep on the couch. If you whatever it is, don't let go of all the stuff, and just take care of yourself today. And now it works for me. It's like I felt fine Saturday, went to work on Sunday, and the rest of the week's been, it's been great. So,
that's awesome.
And the other side of that too is, for the people who'd be like, oh, I should just push through it or whatever. It's like, something else to consider is that, if you do push yourself to the point of crash and burn, is that if you're in a weakened state like that, it doesn't just affect you as far as being tired, it affects like your immune system and such. So, you can get sick from something that maybe normally you could fight off. You might get sick a little easier, and then it could turn into something that maybe it keeps you out of work for, a week or something, or 3 days or what, so just listen, one day on a weekend or something is, it's worth it if you can, just listen to your body. I understand sometimes it's, really difficult to, but if you can, certainly do
It
it.
also can affect your decision-making skills.
Oh, yeah.
Which we'll get into in a little bit, but, it can definitely affect the decisions that you end up making.
Mm-hmm.
So, how was your week, Bryan?
Well, it's funny that Heno was talking about that, because that's basically been what my week has been. My week has been, honestly, a roller coaster of hell. Because for my migraines, I'm on 2 medicines. One of them's an antidepressant, and my psychiatrist is cool with that antidepressant, being used to treat my depression. And when you go on antidepressants, a lot of times they don't really tell you that the roller coaster at the beginning is as bad as coming off of them.
Oof.
They can make you really moody, and the one that I'm on, like the 2 medicines, getting used to 2 medicines at one time, basically I've had really bad heartburn, nausea. It's thrown my sleep really to where I'm like all or nothing. Either I'm sleeping 12 or 14 hours, or I can't get to sleep. I'm really irritable. My days have just been like, I looked outside today. I came out of the doctor's office today because I had a psychiatrist appointment. I walked out, and it was just, there's a little bit of snow blowing in the air, and it was cold and overcast, and I was like, this just feels right. Like, this is how I feel. Like, like, it's not quite dark enough, but it's pretty close. Like, just kind of sums up how I've been. And it sucks, but hopefully the way to look at it is, and within a few days, a week, this should start to subside, because usually the first week or 2 is your body adjusting to these things, because it's the medicines are, you're forcing the chemicals in your body to do different things. So once you're adjusted, usually it gets better. If not, then wean off of it and start a new one and start the roller coaster again.
Man,
it's but it's a necessary evil. It's because it's either you fight these, you fight through this in the hopes of it's better, or you deal with it unchained. And unchained, it's, a horrible beast that will be worse. So,
Right.
That's, yeah.
So what was your win for the week, do you think?
Man,
I got one: avoiding as much contact with humans as possible, and thereby being of service to everybody. I shouldn't be out in public right now.
Servicing the world by opting out.
I'll be honest, I have done a lot of that this week. I haven't been in the Kit group a whole lot. I haven't done much on Twitter or Facebook or much of any interacting with people. And honestly, it's because I posted a picture on Instagram today, and I was like, team not feeling it, or not feeling today, something like that. And that really has been it. I just haven't felt social media. I haven't felt much of anything. I've been looking forward to doing this because, this show always feels like therapy. And tomorrow I'll do Salty Language, and I love the same idea, and it was just, it's just so weird how, as far as like, getting anything accomplished, I've been useless. I mean, just useless. Listening to my body, it's tough because I've been getting so many conflicting messages this week. It's like I said, with all this stuff, I feel like I'm being pulled in all these different directions. And I guess my win is that, it's that I know this is the medicine, and it's that I know I'm gonna just ride it out, like that kind of a thing. That I'm not doing a woe is me, and I'm not really doing a I don't know what the word for it is, but
you're not letting yourself slide down that slope. You recognize the reality of the situation.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I've not been in a good place this whole week. It's been pretty bad. But again, in my head, I've pretty much just gone, it'll be better. Like, this is the medicine. Like, the medicine is putting you here, but the medicine's going to pull you back, kind of a thing, You've surrendered
to it, but that doesn't mean that's not surrender. It's to me the positive version of surrender, where it's just like you have total acceptance with it. You understand it.
Yeah.
So many people they'll start going to their doctor like, "What's wrong? This shouldn't be like this," or blah blah blah, and you're like, "Nope, this is part of the deal.
Yeah.
I'm going to get through this, and because it's worth it for what comes next."
Right.
And that's true acceptance, and
Yep.
that's
it's hard to do.
Yeah,
it is.
It is. Yeah, it is, because it would be, it certainly would be a whole lot easier on my body to not be on these things, and because this. Like this heartburn and nausea has been horrible, like I've felt like I'm going to be sick all day for 4 days now. And I've had heartburn, like wake you up in the middle of your sleep heartburn for about 4 days now. And, so I'm going to probably have to go on something like Prilosec or whatever to combat that. And it's like I have to go on another medicine to deal with the medicine I'm using to deal with it, So
make sure that there's not another medicine that they can give you that doesn't have quite those same side effects.
There's not.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I mean, I when I go back to my neurologist, I'll certainly mention this to him, because it is a side effect, and I'll just make sure see what his level of concern is, and I figure he'll probably be like, oh, when it bothers you, take Prilosec or whatever, because that seems to be what everyone online seems to say, is that their doctors have said take Prilosec or Nexium or one of those medicines.
Sure.
But I don't want to. There was something on the news a week or two ago that they're saying that there's some concern that long term on those can be bad for your kidneys. I've already got things with my kidneys, so yeah.
I mean, I take, what is it, omeprazole or
that's
whatever,
the
generic version.
Omeprazole?
Yep.
Is that it? And I take it for 3 or 4 days and then knock it off.
Yep, that's what I usually do too, and that's pretty much. I just need to go buy some, and I just haven't, and because usually I can take something else. Like I have some was it Zantac type stuff? It's not touching it. This is bad acid reflux. So I need to go get something like that over the course of a few days will take care of it. But enough about that. So. Yeah.
Well,
now that I've brought us down.
No, I mean, I hate to say that that's cool, because it's not cool that you're having to go through all of this.
Yeah.
It's cool that you're in a good spot in your head, that you recognize the reality of it.
Yeah.
Of what it truly is. So that in and of itself is a really cool thing to do. Cool place to be. I'm in a similar situation. Not that, scratch that. I'm in my own situation. With me being unemployed right now, it's been really interesting for me, because I don't do unemployed very well. I found this out about myself. I'm working very hard to make sure that my days are filled with things that exercise my brain and all that good jazz. So that's going fairly well. But today I had my own little epiphany where I came to terms with the fact that I'm good. I'm really good right where I'm at. I'm happy with right where I'm at. I know there's a lot of growth in front of me, but I'm grounded really solid, and my family, my friends, my support system has me really, really grounded right now. And that's a great place to grow from.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my win, is coming to this thought that, you know what? It's okay. You know, it's okay for me to be unemployed at this moment. Something's going to come up. I'm going to get another job, you know, and things are going to go back to quote unquote my norm. And, you know, but that's okay for things to be a little bit crazy right now. So that was that was my win for the week, is being okay with that.
I like that. That's the
Yeah.
one of the big changes for me in my life, and that I try to work on, is this idea that life was great when good things were happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, life can be great also when not so good things are happening. It's just life, you know, and finally getting, you know, I used to hate hearing that kind of stuff, but I finally got past it and started to realize that, you know, when we talk about this stuff, it's like, you have a hard week. It's like, it's nothing to be sad about. It's that's life. It's reality. This is real. And what inspires me is to hear how another person is getting through the day and, you know, getting through that day so they can get to the next day.
Yeah.
And that to me is the inspiration. I want to hear what gets, you know, it's so easy to walk in and talk about how, you know, oh, life is awesome because I got this going for me and this going for me, and wow, man, I should go play the lottery, or, you know, this and that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but then when something bad, you know, and especially when they start making it, it's like, wow, you know, the universe is lining up for me, and it's like, oh, it's not lining up for me when things go bad. No, it's always lining up for me. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity to grow, and that's like what you're talking about, Jen. You're talking about, you have this opportunity to look at things differently, you know, and that's a perspective thing. That's a, you know, like, this is this whole thing I talk about when I got sober, the world didn't change. It was just like the lens on my glasses got changed.
Yeah.
I just saw it different. And when I run into other people, we can talk about heavy things. It's not sad. It's not depressing. We get a chance to talk about it and say, well, this is how I'm going to get through this. Cool. You know, I want to hear people who are living their lives and making the best of it no matter what. That to me is inspiration. That's a hero.
Yeah.
You know, because too many of us, we run away from it, and we've all done it. We've all run away from it. We've hidden from it. We've denied it. We've gone through all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But when we can face it, and especially when we can face it together, because also, how many of us have fully isolated?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's hard. You know, like I have friends that I know right now are isolating, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
You know, I feel bad for them, and I go, well, you know, that's where I was. You know, I try my best not to do the same thing, you know. It's part of my nature. And,
yeah.
Wow, I just went off.
No,
No,
that's perfect.
you're totally right though too, because that's what I've done. You know, like this week, that's what I've essentially done. You know, as this has gone through with me, I've just really isolated, and it's the first thing I do. It's my fight or flight. Is like, I've joked for years with people that, you know, there's when people say fight or flight, and I'm like, there's fight or flight, and there's also curl up in a ball. Like, and I'm a curl up in a ball.
Right.
You know, it's like, and, you know.
But here you are now talking about it.
Yeah, right.
That's
You know.
different. That's new.
Yeah. And so, you know, there's an element of it that it's kind of like, I've got to, like, curl up in a ball for a little bit, and then it's like, okay, now I'll fight, you know? You know, but I have to have that moment of preparing for it, you know? I
like to think of it more, instead of curl up in the ball, it's going to the corner of the ring, going to your corner of the ring, getting a little water, getting toweled off a little bit.
yeah.
A little Vaseline.
But the truth of it is that it's more like curling up in a corner than it is going to, yeah, I mean, it really is. It's, you know, it's not running away, because I really, because I don't run away from the stuff. I still face it, but I just face it alone most of the time. So I just internalize it, and then I'm like, okay, now I need, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a general that, you know, goes into his tent and then comes out and says, okay, here's the plan. You know, that's kind of what happens, you know. He goes into his tent, has a cry, figures out his plan, and then, you know, all right, here's what I need from everybody, you know.
Exactly. Well, Hannah, you were talking about people isolating and having to accept that that's their choice in not being able to help them. And that's something I wanted to talk a little bit about today, and as our topic, is people's choices. Is first, recognizing our choices, and two, accepting other people's choices. I think that there's both aspects to it. We've had some pretty serious stuff in the news lately, including just recently Dave Mira, who is quite the hero for many, many, many people, especially people from the 90s. He was a BMX biker that has done some amazing things in his field and has spawned quite a successful career with video games and training and a bunch of other things branching off of BMX. And it was quite surprising for many people, as suicide has a tendency to be. And he decided to take his own life, and people are pretty shocked by the whole thing and don't understand. And which brings me to something that I read once that I still stand behind, is you don't have to understand, you have to accept. And there's going to be choices in life that people make that we don't understand, but we do have to accept the fact that they are their choices to be made. We're all individuals, we're all adults, and unless someone is legally making decisions for you, then, or you're legally making decisions for someone else, then it's their right as an individual to be able to make their own decisions. And as hard as those decisions are for us to accept, it is our responsibility, if we choose to be their friends and in their lives, or part of what they're in their legacy, is to accept the decisions that they've made. I don't know. What do you guys think about everything?
No, it's a good point. Like, when we talked a little about this before the show, you know, when Heno pointed out that Mira's best friend made the comment that, you know, he was would have, you know, if he had just called him instead, you know, he would have hopped on a plane immediately. And, you know, I brought, you know, we all agreed that it was, you know, it's like, well, maybe he did think of that. Maybe that wasn't enough for him. You know, like, he still was like, hey, I know if I call this guy, he'd be here in the drop of a hat, but I'm still going to do this. Like, maybe that wasn't enough. Like, this was still the decision he decided to make. And a lot of people don't understand that, and because they've never been there. You know, you know, people don't understand suicide. Most people don't understand how a person can get that far, because if you ask ask most people, like, give me your absolute worst day. What is your rock bottom? It probably won't even get close to a suicidal day. You know, it's you know, and it's a horrible, horrible feeling, let alone somebody. And I don't know, and I don't want to speak about or on Dave Mira, because I don't know if he had any sort of mental illness or anything of that ilk, but I'm just speaking from my situation. You know, you don't know how, when you just wake up day after day and you feel like useless and awful and all this, and you look at the fact, like, you look at, you know, like, I had a conversation with somebody once, and they said they made a comment about suicide, and they couldn't understand why somebody would do it. And I was like, look, I'm 37. I'm 38. Or, you know, I'm 37. I was like, the average guy lives to be, 70 whatever? You know, 78, 80, whatever it is. Would you want me to go through feeling this way for 40 more years? You know, it's like, at some point, I can easily see why somebody might go, I've had enough of this. You know, if every day when you woke up, I hit you in the head with a hammer, how many more days would you want that? You know, like, that kind of a concept. I know that seems extreme, but, you know. So when people make these decisions, sometimes they're not right of mind, but sometimes they've just been beaten down so much that that's all that feels like. That feels like the only choice. Like, that feels like the only way that they can, get out of it. Now, as you always say, there are other choices. There are always ways to go the opposite way. It's a ton of work. I mean, it's no different than somebody being 600 pounds and go, I'll never be thin. You can get there. It's going to take a ton of time. It's going to take a lot of work and all that. But yeah, you could get thin again, and I think it kind of falls into that same vein, is that it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of work, and you've got to want to do it,
Right.
Yeah,
And that's...
I was...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Finish what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, and it's so important that we remember the fact that there are choices, and people are actively making these choices for whatever reasons. They're making these choices, and it's so difficult because we can see other options that may work for them, but if they don't feel that it work for them, then that's still their response. That's still their choice.
Yeah. So while I was having coffee with a friend of mine, and I just suddenly saw I had a text message, and I pulled up the text, and it was one of my friends back in California, and he said that we called him Bucky, but his name was Jonathan. Jonathan had committed suicide on Tuesday, and this is somebody I went to high school with. We were. I was never really close with him. We played, soccer and things like that. But when I was, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months sober, I went to my 20-year high school reunion, which was a huge deal because, I hadn't been back to California yet. I didn't know how it was going to be. Triggers, who knows? I had no idea. So it was a big deal for me to go back to this event. And I had a wonderful time. I had a great time. I had so much fun. And what was amazing was at one point, we all ended up at a bar at the end of the night. And Bucky was just a freak dancing. First of all, he showed up in like 3-piece suit. I mean, we're talking vest, everything. He had the pinstripe collar on it turns out he was a lawyer. He got himself a law degree. He was very successful. And he looked the part. He looked every bit the part. He just looked like that professional. And here he was, half undressed, just dancing up a storm and just, having fun. The amount of joy that I saw in him, you couldn't hide from it. It was so infectious. And I didn't know it at the time. I found out almost a year later when I was sober for a year, and he congratulated me and sent me a message that he'd been sober for a long time too. So that night at that reunion, he wasn't drinking, and that was a huge influence for me. It was one of those things I needed to see. I needed to see people doing what they did before, but without having to put a substance in them.
Right.
And so to hear this, that was Sharon, just walked in the door.
Yeah, no problem.
To hear that on Tuesday, that happened. Now, I don't know why. I have no idea why. I haven't gotten a hold of my friend Brendan yet to hear if he heard anything.
Yeah. But
I realized that it really doesn't matter because a year ago in January, I lost, and my singer in my band, Danae, she lost her mother. I lost someone that was a very special person in my life, and she was our band's biggest fan. I mean, Danae's mom, Lenny, she was one of those women there would be nobody at one of our shows yet. Nobody showed up yet. And it sounded like there was an audience of 1,000 just because she was out there. She was one of those people that she'd show up and she'd start hooping and hollering and clapping, and next thing you know, everyone else is doing it too. Because she didn't care. She just was. She loved her daughters and her son. She loved music. She loved her community. The things that she had done were unbelievable. And she had two, not even a year-old twin grandchildren. She had her other daughter had, my friend Haley had a son. And Lenny decided to take a ton of pills. And that was her choice. Now, Lenny has suffered with serious mental illness for a long time, on top of addiction and all sorts of other things. She was the most beautiful, troubled soul I had ever met. And that was a fact. And when we were at the funeral, everyone was going up and saying wonderful things and crying, and there was a lot of tears and joy and laughter. But it was Mariel Hemingway who got up there. And Mariel Hemingway is a huge advocate for mental health issues. If you ever look into her, some of her writings, she is so behind several bipolar foundations that are looking for a cure kind of a deal.
Yeah.
And she's worked with crisis hotlines, and she's got a hell of a lineage when it comes to writing.
Yeah.
She got up there, and she was the person. Yeah, she does. She's amazing. And she wasn't able to be there. I'm sorry. She had somebody else that knew her got up and read the letter that Mariel had written for Lenny. And it was the person that was going to address the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And that it didn't matter those grandchildren. It didn't matter the most doting, wonderful husband ever. It didn't matter daughters and son. None of that mattered. This whole community, I mean, it was standing room only in this hall. There were so many people that had come out. None of it mattered because she suffered from mental illness. Yeah. And that was her choice.
Yep.
And it was great to have somebody say it. And it wasn't to bum everybody out. It was just the truth.
It's the cold, sobering truth. Yeah. It is. And no one wants to hear it, though, because they don't want... It's hard to fathom that someone could put anything above their grandbabies or their kids or themselves or whatever. But it's the truth. It's this beast, whether it's bipolar, depression, anxieties, whatever, wherever you are in the thing, or addiction, even, any of it. Any of it. It's what it is, though, is that it puts you in such a corner that you don't feel like there's any light. And that's why it's so important, and that's why every week when we get to the end of the show, when I always make the comment of, if you're feeling this way, don't be alone. Like if you feel these feelings, call someone, get someone, because... it's just like closing your eyes and trying to get out of a forest. It's that concept. If you have someone who's sighted helping you out of the forest, you might be able to get out. But it's such a hard thing to do because it's so hard to call for help.
And keep in mind, everybody, that part of mental illness is isolation. It is a product of the disorders and the diseases. That's just... It just is. And when you forget that, and you forget that it's a symptom, and you let that isolation take control, it's so easy, like you were just saying, to get lost in that forest, to get lost in that isolation. It's so easy to do. And it can get to that point. And it's so tough because, as I mentioned in the beginning, when what I wanted to talk about is recognizing those choices that are out there, but also accepting the choices that others make. So it's so tricky and so many different dimensions to it and stuff, and yet it's so important.
The biggest reason we can't accept people's choices is because we're selfish. And I have no problems if anyone wants to dislike me for saying that, but I have no problem saying it because it's the truth. And everyone wants to say that the person that kills themselves is selfish, and they are. But they aren't at the same time. They're trying to kill their beast is what they're trying to do. They're not trying to make you hurt. They're not trying to make you feel empty. They're trying to end their pain. That's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Most people that are in that position also think that they are a complete burden to everybody around them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if after everyone says, oh, but that wasn't true. And if it doesn't matter.
Go back and listen to our episode where we talked about the distorted thinking. And listen to that, because that'll set you straight on, as far as that goes, because that is what happens is these things they manifest to where you, like you said, you feel like a burden, you feel like you're causing stress on other people or whatever it is. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Heno.
No, it's great. Perfect. No, I've seen enough, and this is kind of another weird thing to say, but it's also the truth, is there's people I can help and there's people I can't. And that's in our lives. And if somebody does take their life around you and you're struggling to find out why, see if you can go help somebody else.
Yeah.
Take that and go help somebody. If it makes you mad, get up and go help somebody that can be helped, or that is willing for some help or needs it or something.
Yeah.
Because especially I've seen people just drink themselves to death, and it didn't matter what we did. It didn't matter how much we tried. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. It was their choice. They wanted to do it. And it's this is where, this is an illness that is like mental illness, because it's insanity.
Yeah.
When you have somebody who is literally, their eyes are yellow.
Yeah.
And the first thing they ask you is, did you bring me some vodka?
Yeah.
That's where they're at. They don't care. Now, it's horrible. It's horrific. But I look at it now and I just after I hear it enough times, it's not that I'm calloused or anything like that. I feel it. I feel it in me. But I realize that there's nothing I can do for this person. There's nothing I could have done. There was that was this person's solution ultimately.
Yeah.
So now what can I do for somebody else?
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of thing where it's like, don't waste time with the dying. Go help the wounded that might be actually. And I hate to say it that way, but that's also the truth.
I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say that. Yeah. That you may be missing an opportunity to help someone. Yeah. Like you may miss that window with someone else while you're, trying to fit back through a window that's already closed. And it's the truth. You're right. And it's horrible because you never want to give up on somebody. But you see it. If you've ever watched Intervention, you've seen people have to do that, to where they've had to kick people out of their houses, like family members, cutting, other family members off, kicking them out, doing different things like that because they realized, hey, like I've tried to help you. I've extended every olive branch I can to help you and you won't accept it. So I can't do this anymore, and at some point you can't. For your own sake, if nothing else, you can't do that because you can't exhaust yourself to that point because then you're no good to others either,
Because here's the one. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like to refer to it instead of giving up on someone, is setting consequences for their actions. Because if they stop doing their actions, then most people would take them right back. So it's setting consequences for their actions that they have to live by, and if they want to be part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And
one thing
but
that's
different than giving up on somebody. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is the hardest place to be at, and this is where we talked earlier about parents having to deal with their children, whether they're acting out, if it's behavioral stuff, if it's drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, life kind of stuff is. it is one of the hardest things, especially when a parent may have gone through that themselves, and they see it, and like Bryan said, this is selfishness, this is ego stuff. This is like, hey, you should listen to me because I know better because I've been through this. Well, who are you to decide on another person's destiny? And that was the most mild-mannered human being that I have ever met. The kindest soul one day just fully went off the handle on another lovely human being, and it shocked the crap out of all of us because she was lamenting her son and his choices, and he slammed his hand on the table and said, "How dare you think you can control the destiny of another person?" And that's a tough lesson, because now you get into this thing where you say, all right, well, I'm going to set up consequences, and if you don't meet them, I'm kicking you out. Okay. Or I'm going to give you every chance in the world, and I'm just going to be a witness and wait for the miracle to happen. Now, which way are you going to go? We all have to make those choices. Those are tough decisions.
Yeah.
I've heard both things work.
Right.
I cannot tell you which one worked. I heard the most amazing story from a man who stuck by a woman while she struggled with drugs, or mainly just alcohol and some mental illness stuff. And he said that every day she woke up and she said, I want to be sober. I want to get better. And by the end of her workday, she had gone back to that bottle. But every day she woke up and she said, I want to do better. And so Jack said, it's not for me to decide when. I'm not going to go play God. All I am is a witness for when that miracle happens. And one day she got up and she said, that's it, I'm done. And she hasn't had a drink since. And she went and dealt with her mental illness stuff. And now, she's great life, most wonderful. Every time I see her, it's a giant hug. And I learned so much from that day, of like, I don't know when, I don't know how. All I can do is try to be there for them and be a witness. I can't administer. I can't say, and so, but some people do need to get their asses kicked, and that's the hard part,
Yep. Yeah.
Some people respond better to that.
Yeah.
Some people do need you to go over to their house and shake them up and say, get up.
Yeah.
Move. I just don't know who, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. When to and when not to is difficult.
Well,
But
yeah.
you also have to protect yourself and understand that you have to take care of you to be able to give to others. So part of taking care of you means putting parameters on things or people's actions that are negatively affecting you. Then you have to do that. Protect yourself. And it is you being selfish, but you being selfish for a good reason.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think we've covered this before on here, but I want to point out, like, selfish is not a bad word. Like,
no, it's not.
It gets a very negative connotation because it most people, when you say selfish, they think narcissistic. And even narcissistic isn't always bad, but selfish many times is not a bad word. You have to look at context, and in like a situation like this, it's not bad because you do, again, just like, you've pointed out plenty of times, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't be of service to others, so in those situations, or like if you have mental health, you have to know your boundaries. You have to know when, and my therapist has, as I've told her at different times when I've, or I'm like, yeah, I didn't do this because this, or I was doing this and then I stopped because, and she's like, good. She's like, your boundaries and you're stopping, and she, you should push yourself a little bit, but don't go too far because you need to, you don't want to put yourself in a position that you're like freaking out, basically. So,
And if we're basically acknowledging right now that, this is life or death.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, and if anyone ever tells you that, all right, let's say the medicine that you're on affects your, whatever, your sex drive or affects your motivation or whatever, and you have somebody in your life telling you that they don't like this, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, you tell them it's like, this is life or death for me.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm going to be selfish right now because I want to get better.
Yeah.
And that's what I was told. I was told that, you know what, it's okay to be selfish right now. This is your time, because ultimately when you get through all this, you are going to have you're going to have an opportunity to no longer be selfish, give back.
Yeah.
But for a period, there is nothing wrong with saying that. And there's nothing wrong with, is laying this out. It's like, I want to get better.
Yeah.
And that's, and yes, I am being selfish right now.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Once I get through all this, if you stick with me, if you're part of my team, things are going to change, and it's going to be better for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I said, I think for the most part,
Yeah.
when we say selfish on this show, I think most of the time that's how we're meaning it. Like we're meaning
self-care.
Self-care is how
Yes.
we're meaning it. We're not generally
that's
meaning.
a good idea.
Yeah,
That's a good word.
Yeah, we don't mean it selfish as in, only doing, disregarding others' feelings altogether. Because many times you're not disregarding others' feelings when you're doing this stuff. You just have to do what's best for you. Even if it's not the best choice for other people. I mean, it's just how it is. It's, it's just sometimes in life, that's just how it's got to be. Like Heno said, you have that period where you not pull into yourself, but you take care of yourself. And then afterwards, after the cocoon stage,
Right.
you're a beautiful butterfly. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That is, and I think that's why, we see, it's a hard truth, but not everybody makes it. We see so many wonderful stories of people who get it, and then there's others that don't. And I don't think we'll ever get an explanation for it. I can never know what's truly going on in somebody's head. I have no idea what thoughts somebody has had unless they're willing to share it with me.
Right.
And that is also a choice, is not everybody wants to say, ouch, I'm hurting. Some people just don't.
Yeah.
They want to keep it to themselves. And it's a hard thing to accept, especially when this has changed, because a lot of us, and I've heard you talk about it, Bryan, with you and Tony. It's like your relationship changed at some point because your life changed.
Yeah. And
Tony's sitting here going, okay, what happened to my buddy from, this time ago? Now he's different, and that happens, and it's even harder for us. But that is even more of a time to become understanding, to, offer help, do everything you can, and to put things into a perspective where you can still be useful to somebody. Because that's the other part, is it's so easy to start resenting people.
Yeah.
And because we feel it's a loss. Mm-hmm. It's a loss to us, Mm-hmm. And I think willingness, when we see willingness in people, even if it's a little bit, if they're willing to try, I look at it as like, hey, I'll be with you.
Yeah.
If I see you're willing to take some steps, I'm going to hold out my hand.
Yeah.
And help you with those steps.
Yep. Now,
if there's no willingness, then I come back to, there's nothing I can do. And it's not I'm giving up. It's just a form of acceptance, that I've learned, which unfortunately sometimes it sounds callous, but it's,
even if it is though, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, it is,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you hate to even put the words out there, but it is the truth. I mean, a lot of times it may not be a 100% kind of situation, but there's so many times where it is like it, if you really look back in life at times where you go, I don't know, there's just so long you can beat. I don't want to use the euphemism of beat a dead horse, but you know what I mean. It's that concept. It's like after a while, it's like just there's no point. They're not listening. They're not. How many times have you? I mean, the ones that always stick in my head would be like this. How many times have you seen people who don't smoke try to get a smoker to quit? At some point you need to just they're not listening to you. And you just accept it at some point, and you just go, they're just going to keep doing it, and even when certain things happen, and you just, I mean, an example, one of my sisters and one of my brothers, my dad died of lung cancer. He had throat cancer before that. You would think, and when they were like, yeah, this is probably from smoking, because he used to smoke quite a bit, you'd think that they would go, maybe we should quit smoking. No, not at all. They didn't even discourage him a tiny bit. Then
that's their choice.
Absolutely. Now, of course, I was like, you guys should quit, because I don't want to watch somebody go through this again. I love you guys. I don't want to watch someone go through. I don't want you to go through the pain and stuff he went through. And then my brother had a kid, actually he did while my dad was alive. I'm sorry, my dad went through the first cancer. It wasn't the second, it was the first one. And my brother had his first son, and his first son had asthma, and they were like, you can't smoke in the house. Boom, my brother never had another cigarette. Hasn't had one, as far as I know, hasn't had one since. And my nephew will turn 15, I think this year, he turns 15, And it's interesting that, your dad getting cancer wasn't enough, but you have a son, and it's like, great, whatever it was, I'm glad he's off of them. Yeah. But at some point, I quit. I didn't keep beating him over the head with it, because I'm like, he's not going to listen to me. Even though I have his best interest at heart, and like you were saying, how dare I try to tell him what to... It's like, realistically, my dad always used to tell me, whenever I would... I'd talk to him for advice... He would be, he'd be like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you my piece. You can go do whatever hell you want because you're an adult. But this way, as your father, I at least said my piece.
Yeah.
And he would give me his advice, and then I'd go do whatever the hell I want because I'm stubborn. And if it was wrong, he was there to support me afterward. And if it was right, he was there to support me afterward. Yeah. And, It was just kind of that way, and that was great, but like I said, after a while with a lot of people, you just can't put the effort into beating someone over the head with something when you realize you're making no headway, so.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part is we
respect it.
Yeah. And not feel guilty if it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing is I see so many people beat themselves up. If I could have done this more, blah, blah, this or that.
Yeah.
And it's like, if somebody's suffering with mental illness and they refuse to get help, they refuse to get, what they need to get better. Well, it's like there's nothing you can do about it. And if you beat yourself up about it, you're going to end up being useless to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's the that's the part where I sit here and I think to myself, I go, no, it's try to take this and try to look at it realistically. Don't make it about me, because it's not.
Right.
It's their choice.
Yeah.
It's not on me.
Yep.
It's no reflection of who I am.
Right.
Because I didn't say the magic sentence.
I worked with a girl a long time ago, and her roommate killed herself. And they were really good friends. And she came into work the one day, and she wasn't working, but she just came in. And I was talking with her, and she was going through I failed her, I could have done more, all this. And I looked at her, and I'm like, you didn't fail her. I was like, because the girl was like super depressed and all this. I was like, you didn't fail. I was like, depression won. I was like, she did that. I was like, that depression conquered her. I was like, you didn't fail. I was like, you did all you could, but sometimes that's just stronger. It's just how it is. And I was like, you did all you could do. I was like, this isn't on you. Like you said, don't make it about you. Even if you did everything you could possibly do, don't make it about you, because it's not you. It's them. It's the disease or the illness. It's not you. And she had the hardest. She ended up quitting, and I think she spiraled into her own like depression and stuff. And I remember hearing about like 2 months later that she had to check herself into a psych ward, and I never heard from her again. So I don't know whatever happened to her. I hope things straightened out for her, but you know, like that's the kind of thing that can happen off of this. And it's like, don't blame yourself because you didn't do that to her. You didn't kill her, you know. Been different if she was, you know, depressed and you walked in with a gun and shot her. I mean, that's a different story, you know. But
you know, it's weird.
You know,
what's weird, and I know you guys talk about this a lot, and this is, you know, talk about Mariel Hemingway, you know, trying to remove, you know, she talks about trying to remove the stigma of mental health. Isn't it wild how if somebody has a physical illness, we don't blame ourselves that we could have done more. We don't ask all these questions, but when they have when it's a mental illness, all of a sudden we treat it differently.
Yep.
But why? Why are we treating it differently?
Yeah.
They both can be terminal.
100%. And I'm not if you go back and look around the time Robin Williams killed himself, I put out a series of tweets that I believe said, I'm not going to repeat the word, but it starts with an F. It was #F depression and those kind of things. And I was doing it for the exact reason you were just saying, is that most people, when people do this kind of stuff, blame something else. And, you know, like you said, if he had had cancer, you'd be seeing tons of F cancer, you know, hashtags and stuff. But people don't do that when it's depression, or in his case, it was, I don't remember what it's called, but they found in the autopsy that they found that he's got something else, and he had Parkinson's, and you know,
early on,
So, you know, but it's never those things. It's never mental illnesses or neurological type things. Those don't get blamed like that. But if it's like you said, if it's a physical ailment, people are jumping all over, and you know, you know. So, and that needs to change. That absolutely needs to change. You know,
well, it'll get us, it'll get us closer towards cures. It'll get us closer towards medications that'll help people when we finally start treating it like we would anything else. You know, we put the same effort in that gets put into cancer and into these various other types of physical ailments that we have. You know, we put tons of money into that, a lot of effort. People donate all the time, but I think mental illness is unfortunately still stigmatized and doesn't get the same, you know, exposure and the same reaction from people. And that's why I say, if this is, you know, if this week gets to you because, you know, because somebody, you know, here, if this, you know, BMX guy was your hero, well, you know what? Do something good with it.
Yeah.
Go. You know, donate some time or donate some money or do something for a mental health cause.
Yeah. Volunteer for a suicide crisis line or something.
Yeah. Do a night. Yeah. Exactly. Do something good with this.
I mean, it'll be a heavy night probably, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. Do that. Go do something along those lines. Yeah.
Give in ways that people want to receive. Because if you give a gift that's if you give a gift to somebody, say, you know, you decide that you're going to buy somebody a scarf. Well, they hate scarves. You decide that they need a scarf, so you buy them a scarf, and you give them a scarf. Is that really a gift for them?
This is an episode of Louie. Or Lucky Louie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole episode. Louis buys his wife flowers that she has specifically told him she hates.
Yeah.
And they argue about, because he's like, I still feel you should thank me for it. And she's like, but I told you I hate them. Yeah. It's a whole episode. And then actually on top of that, there's an episode of a podcast called Hidden Brain where they actually analyze that episode of Lucky Louie and that type of thing and how that reflects people's brains. So, anyway, sorry, I just nerded out.
That's right. So this may be another topic that we may spur off of this one, but you have to stop and think. If someone doesn't want your help, you know, that's...
Well, it goes back to, as we've mentioned, was it the last couple weeks, I think we've brought that up, is that if someone doesn't ask for help, it's kind of like advice in a way. If they don't ask for advice, I'm not saying, like, it still doesn't hurt to offer help. Advice is different. Help is something, if you think someone is in a bad way, I would still say it's worth offering help. Like, hey, do you need help or something, like whatever way you need to. Advice is a little different because advice tends to come across as, pushy. Help's a little different, especially, I mean, like if somebody's laying in bed for a week at a time, hey, do you need to, are you in therapy? Do you need a ride? Do you, maybe something along those lines. But yeah, I'm with you though. It's an interesting line though, If they don't want help, do you still offer it?
Yeah, and it's finding that line. But regardless of everything, I think to kind of buttonhole it a bit is you have to respect that that's their decision to make, but you also have to recognize that there are decisions. So you have your own set of decisions that you can make. Mm-hmm. They have their own set. Both parties have to recognize and respect the other person's choices.
Well, it comes into a lot of it too, functioning within the boundaries of what you can control. You know, and that's a really important playground, for everything in life. It's really important for people with like anxiety and depression and such to, to only worry about things you can control. And similar to this, once you realize you can't, and I don't mean control in a controlling way, I don't mean where you're trying to manipulate another person, but in the more in the sense that you're, trying to help them. But once you realize that
the serenity prayer.
Yeah, but once you realize that your effort is basically just you talking to a wall, Well,
it's just what jumped into my head is this idea of what really gets people is they feel powerless. After all said and done, they say, God, I feel like I'm so powerless. I couldn't help, right? Well, you're not powerless. You might have been powerless in this situation, but we all can go help somebody. Yeah. And that's like what you just talked about, Jen, is like, hey, if you feel like you have a gift that you want to give, go find someone that's willing, ready to get it. Yeah. Because that feeling of powerlessness, it's help. Like we're helpless. There was nothing I could do. Okay, well, you're not helpless. You can go help somebody else now.
Yeah,
and maybe make a difference somewhere else. Where somebody wants it. Go find that person that's calling that hotline and go talk to them. Go do that kind of stuff. I think that's a great way of turning it around.
Well, like I said, you offer your help to somebody if they're like, I don't really want your help. Mm-hmm. So okay, go help someone else. Maybe later on that person comes back to you and says, hey, can you help me now? Mm-hmm. Then okay, hey, yeah, sure, whatever. Or you point them in the direction of help at that point. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Well, that being said, I think we're right at that moment that we need to start wrapping up. So you guys feel good about this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice chat.
All right. Awesome. Well, if you want to continue the conversation with me, you can reach out to me at Jen's Crazy Life on Twitter. And it's Jen with a G. I keep forgetting to mention that, but it's Jen. It's Jen with a G. Yes. And you can write us an email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com, or the website is thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. And Heno, how can they reach out to you?
Find me at Ida Heno on Twitter, or just look for me out on Facebook.
Nice. Yep, there's not a ton of Henos out there, right?
No, you'll find me.
And Bryan, how can they reach out to you?
You can find the other Twitter account for the show where I post like when the new episodes go up at The Crazy Life Pod. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other podcast, which is Salty Language, at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. Let's see here. And then also, as we like to point out, we're not doctors or therapists or trained professionals in any way. We just are three people who've dealt with some stuff in life, and we're just trying to help out and, pass along some knowledge and tips as we can. So if you think you need help, please do not self-diagnose yourself. Please go get help, because with that diagnosis, you can set up a game plan and get the tools you need for a proper battle plan for attacking whatever monsters you have to take care of. And then also, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network and the Wicked Radio Network. I almost forgot about those. Don't want to do that. So go check those out. And also, if you are looking for new podcasts, type in on Twitter, hashtag Podern Family. There's a whole bunch of podcasts, indie podcasts that are on there, and you can find some really cool podcasts if you just happen to be looking for some new stuff. So give that a look. And then, of course, the last part that I mentioned is always, if you're in a position where you're considering suicide, please don't. As we put, it's your choice, as we've just spent an hour talking about, but please don't. Call a suicide hotline number, such as the one I mentioned last week, which is 1-800-273-8255, which is also a number you can call if you're having a high anxiety or a panic type attack, or if you just need someone to talk to. They'll talk to you for 20 minutes, but after 20 minutes, you can hang up and call right back. Or use a website like 7cups.com, I believe it is, or there's a variety of other ones. I'm going to try to put a thing together for the website. But try not to be alone. Call someone in your support group or call 911. Tell them you're having a mental health emergency or what have you. And yeah, I think that covers everything.
Sounds good. Yep, you always have a choice, people. Always have a choice. Make informed choices whenever you can. And with that, keep breathing. Talk to you soon.